Warmly welcome to Let's Talk About Health. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. I must say I've missed you all greatly because we've had a short break for about maybe a month where we hadn't had any program at all. So I am truly thrilled to be back on set. Tonight we are going to look at some very, very interesting things, looking into the foods we eat and what we get from them. And it's pretty much a practical session on what we have been looking at the past couple of months. I've got Mr. Douglas Twenefour with me, and he's been here twice already looking at a pragmatic way of losing weight. And we have also done a session on putting diabetes into remission. So before we get the ball rolling tonight, let's take a short break and we will be right back. I'm your host, I'm Mrs. Winnie Ohinikisi.
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.
Now, welcome back to Let's Talk About Health. Douglas, you are very welcome once again. It's the third time on set with me. And tonight is going to be more exciting because by popular request, a lot of people wanted to know the kind of foods we eat as Black ethnic minority groups or especially Africans. So tonight I thought, let's bring some of the foods that we eat on a daily basis on set, because the problem we have is we don't know how to work out how much calories we have in anything that we eat as Africans. I mean, generally, when you go to the supermarkets, especially here in the UK, for instance, you will find the calorific value of like a packet of sandwich. And so you know exactly how much you are having. So just so we recap on what we've been doing, can you just go over the past two sessions that we have, especially the one on weight loss, and then we will build on that.
Okay, thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to always be here and discuss things pertaining to health. So the last program we were talking about pragmatic ways to lose weight, and I made mention of the fact that the foods we eat, our traditional foods themselves, are not a problem. So I emphasize the fact that it is the way that we cook them and the amounts that we serve which are the problem. So for example, I mentioned that there's a reason why a ball of quinque looks like your fist. If you eat twice, then you are probably overeating. I also mentioned the fact that back home, you could see 2-3 people around a bowl of fufu. But here, most people eat on their own and they still want to maintain 2 balls of their fufu. So it was more to do with the quantities. And I'm also mentioned that if you want to lose weight, you have to plan it. You have to approach it as you would with anything in your life. So for example, if you want to put together your financial plan, you think through it, and weight loss should be also approached that way.
Okay. Just to let the viewers know that you are a specialist in your field, isn't it? You are a dietitian.
So yes, I'm a dietitian, I'm a nutritionist, and there's a slight difference between the two. So luckily for me, I'm both. And I've been working in the NHS for over 15 years now. At the moment, what I do is to put together guidelines for other dietitians and clinicians to use.
So we are in very safe hands.
I am hoping so.
Yes, I'm sure about that, 100%. The last time we looked at body mass index, something that we want everybody to check themselves. And so we want as many as possible to get the hang of how to check this, index.
Yeah.
Can we just go through that, and then we will build on and start looking at the foods we eat?
So usually what people do is when you see that your clothings are becoming tighter, it will give you an indication that you're putting on weight. But there is a way of looking at people and more or less determining whether the weight that they carry is putting their health into some sort of danger. And the way we do that is to use what you mentioned as BMI, which is body mass index. And for that, what we do is to take your height and we take your weight, and then we divide your weight by your height squared. It is mathematics, so sometimes people are not able to do that, but there are a lot of calculators that will do that for you on the internet. Okay. There are also charts, and today we'll use the chart, which makes it easier. Most of these charts are color coded, so it will give you some visual representation of where you are. Of course, green will tell you that your weight is okay. Amber will tell you that perhaps you are getting closer to your weight impacting negatively on your health. And if you are in the red zone, then of course you need to take immediate action with support to be able to lose the weight.
Yeah, a lot of people who watched the last program were surprised that I used myself as an example, and I didn't quite make the green zone. I wasn't even in the yellow, isn't it? I was borderline like overweight to obese, isn't it? Yeah, so I've been working on that. Trust me, I have.
That's good to hear. The good thing is that if you are in the red zone, you don't have to get out of the red zone to benefit your life, your health.
Okay.
All you need, we know, is if you're able to lose about 5% of your weight, which might not necessarily take you out of the red zone.
Okay.
You will still benefit from your health.
Can you use the chart to sort of explain a little bit what you mean by that? Let's assume my BMI is, say, 42.
So, for example, if your BMI is 42, it is presupposing that your weight is around maybe 98.
Right.
Okay.
Kilos,
kilograms. And if your height is 5 foot. Okay. So if you lost 5% of 98, you're looking at, let's say you lost 5 kilos. That would take you to about 93.
Yeah.
93 will be around here. So it will be about 41.5. That is still within the red zone. But because you've lost 5% of your weight, if you're able to keep it, it will drop your blood pressure, it will drop your cholesterol, it will drop your blood sugar levels. And we know that it will also improve your mental well-being.
Right. So we are not really asking for too much.
No. If you get too much, it's all well and good. But realistically, many people cannot move all the way from the 42 all the way to 24, which is what we are looking for as being healthy. Many people cannot do that. Most people, the way they are able to do that may be through very strict diet, and not everybody is up for that. Which is why we emphasize the importance of small changes that will help you to lose the 5%.
Right. We ended up having to weigh everybody the last time almost at the studio because they were all keen to know where they are. So if Christian is with us, if you want to come around, because you missed that weighing session, so you wanted your BMI to be used. So if Christian is here, so please come.
Okay, I'll be glad to.
Yeah, he wants to be where he wants to use himself as an example. Get weighed, and then we will see where he stands on the scales. Is Christian with us? Kindly get closer to us. And Christian is my husband, and he's offered to join me in this health, okay. And you can come through.
So I'll first ask Christian to take off his shoes, which is what some people don't do. Ordinarily, if you were in my clinic, I will ask if you can even empty your bladder. If you
really,
can. It's a way of making things consistent.
Okay.
But on set, we will just take the
just out of curiosity. What time of day will it be suitable then, especially if you are considering emptying your bladder?
So normally, I would say first thing in the morning,
okay.
After emptying your bladder, is if you want it to be consistent, because there are people who are even interested or hanged on 0.5 or 0.1 kilo. Mm-hmm. If the weight shifts by 0.1 kilo, it could be a motivation or a demotivation.
Right.
So for those people, it is important to be consistent, which is why early morning after emptying your bladder is probably the best time to do.
Yeah, and I'll add this on from an acute setting point of view, because for our heart failure patients, and there will be other people who are in the community with heart failure, and they would also choose that time first thing in the morning when they've not had breakfast to do their daily weights.
Yeah.
You know, because that gives you a true picture of what your weight is. So that is just so you know, because I mean they are not only in the hospitals, they come out into the community as well. And so
sometimes fluid retention could be a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Right.
There you go. So what I'll do is to weigh Christian first. Okay. Christian is calibrating the scales in his favor.
You can lift your head up, stand straight.
I'll make that as 90.
Yeah.
Yes. And Christian, how tall are you? You can get off?
5'8".
5'8".
Yes.
So Christian is 90, which is slightly around here, and you are 5'8". So I'll bring it all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. Yeah, so we are looking at around 29.5. So slightly between amber and red. Yeah, so it's between amber and red.
Not bad at all.
which is way better than the example we used, which was 42. So if Christian was to lose 5% of his current weight, so that would be about, let's say, 4.5 kilos, which would take you to 85, probably, 85.5. That would take Christian all the way to around 29. So from 29.5 to 29. That is a huge jump.
Yeah.
0.5 of a BMI is significant. Wow. So that will impact your health positively.
Yeah. Well, he's not doing badly at all, because he's quite close to the healthy zone, isn't it? So without doing too much, you can easily get into the healthy zone.
If I empty the bladder, I could go.
It is possible. The other thing that I wanted to say about BMI is that it is not a sacrosanct marker.
Yeah.
So there are people whose BMI will not be too reflective of their health. So for example, if you see rugby players, they are very bulky with muscles. Their BMI will usually be high, but it doesn't mean that their weight is impacting their health.
Right.
Also, for elderly people, because they would have lost a lot of muscle mass, BMI is not an accurate
yeah, thanks,
depiction.
Christian.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and I
thank
look forward
you so
to your
much.
questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just so the viewers know, he's got a whole load of questions to ask you. Yeah, so I said he has to make this one. So hopefully when we get to the question time, he can come along and ask as many questions as he wants. But for those of you who are watching online, who are at home, just keep sharing. We are on Omega Live TV, and it's streaming live on Facebook and YouTube, and it's proudly sponsored by World Remit. World Remit, the safest way to send money to your friends and family all over the world. If you want to phone into the studio, the number is 0751 368 8333. 0751 368 8333. That's the number to phone in. So I think we will go straight on to today's agenda, and it's making healthy food choices, because at the end of those two sessions that we have recapped, it came across that we don't really know what is in the foods that we eat, especially as Africans. The kind of food that we eat is not labeled, it's a lot of the time prepared at home or in different places, but we can't work out how many calories are in these foods. So to make healthy choices, can we just start with, say, breakfast?
Okay.
And then we work our way through the day? Because I remember you said we have to have a total number of calories to look at for the day, isn't it? So if we start with breakfast, and I've got a bowl of cereal there, as you can see, and then another one, Weetabix. How much of these are we meant to take? And by this, I think we'll probably be looking at the adult, you know.
So there's a general recommendation that women should be eating around 2,000 calories per day, and men should be eating around 2,500 calories per day. For most of us, these recommendations are too generous, and that will be the basis for the weight problems we have. Mainly because we are not as active as we used to be as a generation. I'll give you an example. Even in this country, when I came here first, you will have to walk or run a few distance before you catch the bus. Now, bus stops are everywhere, so that you don't have to walk as much, which cuts the amount of physical activity that you'll be doing. So generally, my advice to most people is not to eat for women, not to eat the 2,000 calories per day.
So it's too much?
Yes, but reduce it to about 1,005 calories per day. And then for men, reduce it from 2,500 calories to 2,000 calories. Unless you are the type whose work involves manual exertion. So you're doing a lot of manual work, or you are the type who probably goes to the gym maybe 3-5 times a week. Then you can get away with the general recommendation of 2,000 and then 2,005 calories.
Right. So let's go to breakfast. We will probably talk about some of them, like the English, full English breakfast. But let's stick with the basics. A bowl of cornflakes, for instance. How many calories would we say this is?
The first caveat that I will put will be that any food that has gone from the farm to a food manufacturer before it comes home, you want to be careful about how much you eat. And I'll give you an example. An example here will be the cereals that you mentioned, compared to something like eggs or something like avocados or a bowl of fruit salad. The fruit has gone from the farm straight to your plate in terms of what has been added to it.
Yeah.
Most of our cereals will have salt added to it to preserve it, will have sugar added to it to taste well. So you want to, when you're buying them, you want to read the labels and choose the ones that are first of all high in fiber, but also lower in the salt and the sugar. Which is why the wheat tablets, or wheat biscuits, like the one you've shown me, are usually better because they don't have the sugar coating on it, and it's also high in fiber. So for example, if you had 2 of this and you added a semi-skimmed milk, you are looking about 400 calories for that breakfast.
Just for the 2 tablets of Weetabix.
Yes. Things like the flakes, I'll probably say people should not be having too much of it or not consistently. Mainly because compared to the wheat biscuits or tablets, it doesn't have as much calories. Sorry, it doesn't have as much fiber. Okay? And because it has what we call high glycemic index, which is how fast the carbohydrates in it transfers into sugar in your blood, it usually does not last in your tummy for long, which means that when you eat it, you are more likely to go hungry afterwards. So in actual fact, if you had a small bowl of the flakes and you compare that to 2 tablets of the wheat, it will be similar calories.
Okay.
But in terms of health and in terms of impact on your weight, the wheat tablets or biscuits will be better because it will keep you fuller for longer and it gives you the whole grain and fiber that you're looking for.
Right. So the ones that you can actually prepare yourself, like when you want to have an full English breakfast, which includes eggs, tomatoes, whatever you want. But then sometimes we have sausages and the other stuff
so
as
that
well,
is,
isn't
that
it?
is where the problem comes.
Yeah.
So things like your sausages, your bacon, you want to have it occasionally. And for me, occasionally means maybe you decide to have it once a week. Mainly because they have a lot of salt in them and they've been processed. So it is usually not good for your blood pressure.
Right. We said tonight is going to be questions, and even more questions. So there are people around the studio who want to chip in a question or 2. So if somebody is ready with a question, please just bring it out. I can't really see you because you don't want to be seen. But question for Mr. Twenefour, please.
Okay. I heard him talking about sausages not being good. Is there a reason why you think sausages are not being good?
Okay. That's a very good question, actually, because I mentioned that they have salt in them, but there is more to it. So there is good evidence from multiple studies that processed meat, which includes sausages and bacon, ham, they are linked to certain types of cancers, including prostate cancer. They are also linked to heart diseases because of the type of saturated fat that are in them. So that is why I would say people should reduce the amount. It doesn't mean that you can't eat them at all, but it means that you eat them infrequently, but also in small amounts.
Right. Can we have the next question from you guys, please? If you can make it snappy.
You talked about sugar in a lot of processed foods. Now, is honey a good substitute for sugar?
fantastic question, actually. So honey is usually marketed as natural. I sometimes I chuckle when the word natural is attached to food or things that pertain to health. If you're looking at it purely from your weight standpoint, a teaspoon of honey will add more weight to you than a teaspoon of sugar.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because a teaspoon of honey is usually about 10 grams.
Is it the pure honey or
Pure
because
honey.
sometimes it's quite processed as well, isn't it? You don't get it.
So the difference between the processed and the unprocessed will be the minerals that the unprocessed will give you. But my advice is that all those minerals, you can get them from your fruits. So there's no need. I'm not saying you can't have honey, but if you prefer honey, it is a decision you make. That decision doesn't make it better than sugar.
Right.
Sugar is, we know that sugar is linked to a lot of diseases. Those linkage does not absorb honey. Honey is also linked to those diseases that are linked to sugar. So from your health standpoint, you don't do any good by swapping from sugar to honey.
While we are on the subject of sugar, let me chip this in. Does it predispose you to getting diabetes, for instance, consuming sugar?
So this has been a constant debate within within academia, research, and also clinicians. At the moment where we are is that sugary drinks, so your fizzy drinks, your energy drinks, we are clear in our minds that sugary drinks are associated with type 2 diabetes.
Right.
So we know that sugary drinks can put weight on you. And if you put on weight, then your risk of type 2 diabetes is increased. But now we know that sugary drinks can increase your risk of type 2 diabetes independent of its effect on your weight.
Really?
Yes. So there was a good study from Cambridge which followed people up for a long, I think 25 years or so, and it made a clear conclusion that sugary drinks and even fruit juices were linked to increased risk of type 2 diabetes.
Can you throw more light on that as well? Because sometimes we think it's a healthy option, isn't it? Drinking fruit juices, smoothies. Are they good? Are they bad?
So at the moment, in the past, the government, the UK government, and then also the WHO gave clear recommendations around what they termed as added sugar. So in that instance, added sugar was defined as any sugar that the manufacturer of a food product puts in their product. So for example, if you're going to eat bread and in the process of making the bread they put sugar in, that will be classified as added sugar. But recently, it must have been like 2015, so that's about 6 years ago. The government put a few experts together and they reviewed that recommendation. Now they are terming it what we call free sugar. So free sugar in its essence is any sugar that has come out of the plant. So we know that sugar comes from plants. So any sugar that has come out of the plant before you eat it. So for example, the normal sugar, it has come from sugar cane, so it's free sugar. The sugar that you have in fizzy drinks is free sugar. The sugar that you have in your smoothies and your juices has also come out of the plant. So that is also free sugar. Whereas the sugar in your banana itself is not free sugar.
Okay.
And the advice is that the free sugar is the one that we need to reduce, and the free sugar is the one that is associated with bad health. So from that standpoint, drinking your fruit juices and your smoothies will not do good to your heart health, will not do good to your weight as well.
Right. So we are to reduce the intake of those.
Yeah.
But when they come in the natural forms, like in the fruit itself, then it's good. It's okay.
Absolutely, because you make your body work before it extracts the sugar, and it's
Okay.
extracting it with some fiber in it as well. So it is completely different.
Right. Let's take another question.
So my question is, sometimes you go to the shop and instead of buying white sugar, you buy brown sugar, believing that if you eat brown sugar, it's a healthy choice. If you eat brown bread, it's a healthy choice. Brown rice is a healthy choice. Is all those browns better than the whites?
That's a great
a
question,
good
actually.
question.
So
Yeah.
so I'm loving this.
Yeah.
So the brown is usually, and I'll underline usually, better, because
Okay.
most of the browns will give you an indication that it is minimally processed.
Okay.
So for example, brown rice will have more fiber than the white rice, and so is brown bread compared to white bread. So
Yeah.
ordinarily, brown bread, brown rice are better because they are whole grain and they give you more fiber. The caveat is that for sugar, there's no much difference. And even though the brown sugar has been minimally processed compared to the white sugar, they do not have fiber. So they do not give you the key benefit of the browns, because the browns are ordinarily supposed to give you fiber.
Right.
But the the brown sugar does not have the fiber.
I see. Right. We'll take another question from out there, and then we will probably move from breakfast to lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe talk about a little bit about the milk that we add to these, because definitely it will also have some calories in it, isn't it?
Yes. So normally, when it comes to milk, my advice to people is that it doesn't make a huge difference between the green, the red, and the blue ones.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is there was a good study a few years ago that looked at the fat in dairy, including our milk, and concluded that the fat in dairy are actually good for our health.
Okay.
So for me, if you like the red one, fine. If you like the blue top, fine. Unless you are trying to lose weight and you are the type who goes through a lot of milk during the day, in which case there will be a difference between the calories.
Right.
Otherwise, for me, it doesn't make a huge difference. If you are the type who will use it only for breakfast and probably have one or two hot drinks through the day, which is what most people do, it wouldn't be it wouldn't make a difference. Let me go back to breakfast. Even though we've mentioned two breakfasts, one breakfast that I usually encourage people to have is oats.
Okay.
Mainly because it has a lot of fiber in, and it has a low glycemic index, which means that when you eat it, you get fuller for longer. And also to emphasize, there are people who usually do not want to have breakfast. It is important to have breakfast, even if it is just a piece of fruit. And mainly because, again, there's been good studies showing that people who eat breakfast regularly are more likely to manage their weight better. Also, there are some foods that are usually eaten at breakfast. I do not know many people who eat any food that contains or that involves adding a lot of milk in during the day, except breakfast. So for most people, breakfast is the only way to get enough of their calcium, which is why it's important to have breakfast.
Yeah. You've given us an idea of how much, by way of calories, is in these bowls of cereals in front of us. So I'm aiming at about 500 calories for breakfast. Would I be?
Yes. If you're aiming for tops, no more than 500, which is why my advice would be to maybe go for about 400, so that it gives you 100 in your pocket that you can play with during the course of the day.
Okay, because obviously if you are having fruit, they all have add up. Or can you have that as much as you want in terms of fruit and, you know, if you want to have even salad for breakfast?
Yeah, you could. And normally my advice around fruit is either absolute or relative, and I like it to be relative, because if you're eating more fruit, which will stop you from eating other things. So for example, if at lunchtime or for snack you're going to reach out for fruit instead of biscuit or a piece of chocolate or a bag of crisp, then my advice would be to eat the fruit, eat the fruit, eat the fruit. But if you are going to eat the fruit on top of everything else you're doing, on top of your chocolate, on top of your meat pie, then the simple answer is that the fruit itself will add more calories to you.
Right. You and I know that as Africans, a lot of us don't even go with these cereals. We go straight on to a main meal. Kenke, for instance. Is that advisable to start on such a heavy note?
So, ordinarily, my answer would be it wouldn't make a huge difference. So, for example, if you decided to have a small plate of rice in the morning, it shouldn't make a difference. But I will go back to my earlier highlight on the fact that, especially for calcium and milk, most people have it in the morning. So if you decided that you were having your rice, small bowl of rice, but then you will have a glass of milk later on, then that's okay. But I wouldn't want people to miss out on the dairy and also the milk.
What about for those who are lactose intolerant?
So if you are lactose intolerant, there are different types of milk that you can have. Almond milk, lactose-free milk, there are rice milk, there are a lot out there. But my advice would be that if you're buying them, soya milk as well, if you're buying them, first of all, read the label, and you're looking out for two things. One is that it should be unsweetened, and the other thing is that it should be calcium fortified.
Right.
So that you get the calcium that I was referring to, because it is good for our bones.
Right. Let's take a question from out there, and then we will move on, look at lunch.
Yes.
For instance, is there any question out there?
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about. How it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about. How it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.
Right, welcome back. Welcome back. We are live still on Omega Live TV, and it's Let's Talk About Health. Very interesting session so far, and I have some great questions coming out there as well. So we've been looking at breakfast, what to take, what not so advisable to take. But let me take one or two more questions from those who are listening in, and then we will start looking at lunch, which is like typical to our African kind of lunch. Let me say it that way. Hello. Yeah.
I want to know about the eating of the fruit. It is good to eat fruits before the heavy meal or after the meal.
That's a good question, actually. So, from your health standpoint, it wouldn't make a difference. But from your weight standpoint, it might make a difference. So, and the reason why I'm saying that is, if you're going to have the fruit before a heavy meal, then the fruit will occupy some space in your tummy, which will ensure that you eat less of the main meal. So, for example, if you had a bowl of fufu, I'm not saying it's practical, but I'm using it as a hypothetical scenario. If you had a bowl of fufu and you wanted to eat your fruit maybe a few minutes beforehand, ordinarily it should let you eat less of the fufu, which will help with your weight. So that would be the only difference. But in terms of your general health, it shouldn't make a difference when you eat the fruit.
Right.
Okay. And another thing is the fruit intake. I want to know because what fruit should you take first, after you wake up? Fruit, because some of the fruits also bring about diabetes and everything. So what type of fruits? Because as you were talking about the sugar level, that more fruits will have more sugar, more than even the normal.
Yeah. So that's another great question. Thank you. So there is no evidence that the sugar in fruits can cause diabetes or can increase your risk of diabetes. In actual fact, there are pieces of evidence that fruits in itself reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. So fruits like the berries, apples, there's good evidence that it will reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes through perhaps the fiber that the fruits give you. So my advice would be that don't be hesitant in eating your fruits because you are scared of the sugar in the fruit. So long as it's not fruit juice, but it is the fruit itself, you should not be worried about it.
Right. Any more questions?
My final question is that people are advised to go to gym. So going to gym and also maybe taking your time to walk daily, which one reduces your weight?
Yeah, that I don't know. This is a great question. It is not a good question, it's a great one. So we know that when people go to gym, depending on the workout you do, you can put weight on. You can put weight on. And the reason is that if you build up muscles initially, if you jump on the scales, you will see that your weight has gone up. However, in terms of your health, that weight will not impact negatively on your health because it is not fat, but it's muscles. Okay? So in terms of trying to lose weight, going to the gym is okay, but you just have to be aware that depending on the workout you do, initially you might put a little bit of weight on. What you might also realize is that the weight may shift, where the weight is may shift. So for example, you will see that your tummy may come down, but then when you weigh yourself, your weight will still be up. But I've always been telling people that walking is the cheapest way of losing weight. It's the cheapest way of keeping fit. And it's the cheapest way of improving your mental health. And the reason is that when you are in the gym, you are looking at things that are not probably nature, But if you decide to go walking, you breathe fresh air, especially if you are not walking around along a busy road. You also have the opportunity to see nature. And all those things add to your mental well-being. So I would say walking is probably the best. But if you have the opportunity to go to the gym, there are specific workouts that you can do that can also benefit your cardio health. So perhaps a combination of the two would be the perfect scenario.
Right. Okay. Yeah. One more question, and then I'll take a question on Facebook as well. So I bring you all one more question from the floor.
I want to be clear about this regarding fruits. Generally, you said fruits are good, but you realize some are sweeter than others when you eat them. For instance, even banana, when you leave it for long, it becomes tastier, more. So are we better off eating the less sugary fruits, or any fruit at all is okay for consumption? And then also, what quantities should we take in order not to overburden our system? Thank you.
I'm going to stop saying great question. So you made a very good observation, which is that for bananas, when they go brown, they taste sweeter because many, or I would say much of the sugar has been broken down. So if you take a greenish banana and you compare that to the one that's going off a little bit, and you compare their glycemic index, which is how quickly the sugar in each of the bananas transfers into sugar in your blood when you eat it. The one that's going off, the one that's brownish, will increase your sugar levels quicker than the one that is green. So from that standpoint, you can say that the impact is different. But if you do not have diabetes, from your health standpoint, either is okay to eat.
What about fruits on an empty stomach?
Fruits on an empty stomach, some people think that the acid in fruits can affect your stomach walls.
Yeah.
What people forget is that the stomach has acid in it already. And the acid in the stomach is stronger than the acid in fruits.
Right.
So it will not have any difficulties.
It doesn't matter?
No.
Oh, okay.
It does not matter. You can have fruits in an empty stomach, which is why I even suggested that fruit salad could be a breakfast. Because the acidity of the acid in your food, in your fruits, which we measure by something called pH, is not as strong as the acid in your stomach.
Right, very interesting. I think I can allow the studio audience to sort of carry on because they are fully loaded with so many questions. But let's look on Facebook as well. I've got Alberta Kukwa Brew, and she says, what of pregnant women who can't hold dairy down? And I think we are still on dairy with breakfast. And then after that, we can start looking at lunch because it's getting more interesting. So
yes, if you can't hold dairy down, that means that you need to look for other sources of calcium. And key will be bony fishes. So things like your sardines with that soft bones in them, they will give you calcium. Our meat will give you some calcium as well. Fishes will give you calcium. Poultry will give you some calcium as well. So that will be your main option. If it is because you are lactose intolerant, then I will go back to my previous advice, which will be that the plant-based milks, such as your almond milk or your soya milk, which is fortified with calcium, could be an option as well.
Could be an option, right. So we will go straight and look at lunch now. And for a lot of Africans, lunch and supper are pretty much the same. You know, we just change them as they come along, isn't it? So tonight, I've got different meals here. We've got a maize meal, which we call kenke or ga kenke, and it's maize or corn, isn't it, that this is made out of. And like you said, they make it like a feast for a reason. So maybe you touch on that. So we've got maize here. And for most of us too, we tend to eat a lot of rice. So there is ground rice here, and we use it for all sorts, isn't it? For porridges, and to make like some baps as well. And then that is a cassava meal. That's fufu. So I know people are watching who are not from Africa. So this is fufu, as we call it in Ghana, with soup and meat. And again, you can see 2 portions in a bowl. And I would say this is typically what an average adult, like an adult, would be easily consuming that from where we come from. And then we have a rice meal as well. Wache, we have gari with it. So wache with beans, but it's basically rice meal. And then we have the famous jollof rice in here as well. Okay. So let's go through this. Now, shall we start with, say, the bowl of fufu with soup? How much are we? Yes.
Can I ask you if you have a spoon here?
Yeah, there should be a spoon.
Okay.
The producer should be able to
back to that. So
pass us a spoon. Yeah.
I'll go back to what I said earlier, which is that for the fufu, 1 ball should be okay. So for this particular fufu, without being too strict, I can see about 1,300 calories right away.
In this bowl here?
Yes, with the fufu together with the meat and the soup. Because if you look at the soup, even though it's light soup, because it was cooked with the meat, you can see fat on top of it.
Yeah.
So what I advise people is perhaps when you cook the soup, you can let it set, and then you scoop out the fat from the top, and then you can then reheat it. That will mean that it will be less in calories. The other thing that I also advise people to do is, of course, to have 1 bowl of the fufu rather than 2, but also bulk up the soup with things like garden eggs. If it is granule soup, bulk it up with things like beans or even spinach, so that it fills you up and gives you the opportunity to eat 1 bowl of the fufu rather than 2. I
can't believe this bowl of fufu is already 1,500.
Yeah, so we are talking about 1,300, which is closer to what we are asking
for a lady. Yeah. Wow.
So you hammer 2 of this, and you are on your way to 2,500.
So you are saying we should take about half that amount?
Yes.
For a woman or for either?
So if it is 1,300, you're looking at half will be about roughly 700 or 600. That is okay for a man, and at the top for a woman.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that is the fufu. Viewers, that amount of food in that bowl is what a lot of people consume more than that in a go, isn't it? So we are looking at somebody's total recommendation for a meal.
Yeah. So for a woman, you are probably getting about more than 2/3 of what you're supposed to be eating. For a man, you are getting roughly just over half of what you're eating in one meal, which is not ideal.
Right. Let's look at the wache then. So we've got some gari there,
yes,
which is cassava preparation, and then we have this here, and some fish, and then a lot of rice with meat as well. And again, this is typically consumed at a go by most adults, isn't it? How much do you reckon will be in this?
So purely on the basis of the quantity, the wache will have more calories in it. You're looking at about 1,400, 1,500 for this particular wache.
Wow.
Purely because of, if you were doing gram for gram, then the fufu might have more calories, but purely because of how much we've put on the plate. So my advice to many people, because our waakye is a very healthy food. Why? Because we have opportunity to have beans in it. Okay, beans is very good for fiber, and it's also a good protein, a plant protein. So I advise people to have that. And it will also give you a low glycemic index, which means that it won't go into the sugar will not go into your blood quickly.
And fill you up for longer as well, isn't it?
So the waakye itself is good, it's the amount. So I'll probably say for this one, you're looking at a plate for 2 people.
Okay.
So my advice would be to have about that much. You get some of your gari on it and some of your what we used to call talia on it, and then perhaps some of your meat. This will be ideal for a meal, and you are looking about 700 for this. And what you do, you see that there's room around. What you do is to fill it up with some salad leaves,
vegetables.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in effect, you'll be eating about the same volume of food because you still fill it up with the green leaves or salad, and that will fill you up. But it will not have the amount of calories that we previously had, which was about 1,004. This will probably give you about 700, 800 calories.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at that meal, you can tell there's a lot of oil in there as well. Is there any recommendation for how much oil you have in there, or for even which type of oil to use to cook?
Yeah. So most of the calories I was talking about came from the oil. I was looking at how much oil has been used.
Okay.
Normally, habitually, what we do is when we are doing our stew, we pour the oil, cut the onions, and let the onions swim in the oil. Whereas, in actual fact, you need a few teaspoons of oil to brown the onions. And then you use your tomatoes to bring the juice into the stew. So that's how stews should be made. But by habit, we tip the oil until we have enough for the other ingredients to swim. My advice on oil is that you want to go for vegetable oil. So in this country, vegetable oil is usually rapeseed oil. They have a very good profile, which is closer to olive oil. And olive oil has been researched over and over again, and it's been proven to be good for our health, especially if you don't heat it the way we do heat it. So I'll say go for rapeseed oil or vegetable oil and use less. Use less means that when you are coming to cook, you measure it rather than tipping the bottle into the.
Okay. So we've looked at the fufu, we've looked at the rice meal. I think this is a rice meal as well.
Yeah.
And then the kenkey. How many calories will be in a bowl of kenkey?
So for a bowl of kenkey, this one is probably on the higher side. So you're looking at about 400 calories for one. Okay. Normally the smaller ones you're looking at about 300. So kenkey is about 300 to 400 calories per bowl. So if you fire 2 of them, you are closer to.
I like that.
You are closer to getting more than half of what you need in a day.
Okay, right.
And that wouldn't account for things like your fish, things like your fried egg that people do with it.
Yeah.
And I have even seen people who, because they don't like the sharp, hot pepper, they do their hot pepper with tomatoes, everything, and then they pour ketchup on it. So again, that is adding more calories to it.
Right. I mean, you can see on this table that there's a question coming through, but I haven't even brought any dessert, because back home, traditionally, desserts are not part of our meal. We tend to, if you are lucky, and I'm talking about the wider population, get a fruit to go with your meal, and that's for most people will be the dessert. So really, if we are even to have like desserts like we have when you live in countries, when then we are talking of even more calories. Let's take a question from our guests who are behind the scenes, and then fire away.
My question is that I observed that the kenke has been wrapped with a film. What is the effect of that film to the nutrition value of the food towards our bodies?
Okay. So the packaging is this one is plastic, isn't it? There's no evidence that the plastic itself can affect your health. These are legalized and they are okay to use for food.
For food preservation and storage.
Yeah, for storage.
Okay.
So it won't have any effect on your health.
So the packaging, I mean, obviously it's not going to be consumed. It's just the packaging has got absolutely no effect.
No.
On really?
Yeah. It won't have any effect on your health.
You see, I find that very interesting because I read from the internet, from other sources, that even these plastic cups we use for tea and all that, sometimes they have some particles in them, which eventually we consume and it goes into our stool. We pass so much plastic out as well. I read that a while ago. So I mean, this one, you're just going to open it, isn't it? So yeah. So what about the plastics that we use to drink from and all these plastic bottles?
So there are a lot of what I call majoring on the minors. So here like you are drinking from a plastic cup. You're probably drinking energy drink from the cup. You're not concerned about the energy drink, which we know for sure can increase your risk of type 2 diabetes, can put weight on you, but you are concerned about hearsay of something that has been researched, something that has been authorized to use for food preservation, food storage. I would see that as majoring on the minors.
Right, so that we shouldn't be too concerned about that.
We have bigger problems
than
that.
It's the actual content we are consuming. That is the problem. Let's take another question from...
Yes, on the heating of the kenke, you'll be putting in a microwave. And I've learned that heating food in microwave is the most dangerous effect. We have effect on microwave. Can you clarify it?
So I have also heard that microwaving can affect your health, but I'm not too sure of the evidence that they based on. Again, I'll go back to my earlier point, which is that the food that you're heating is more important than the heating process. There are a lot of things that we are doing wrong that we need to concentrate than the other things that we are not too sure of. That would be my answer. And microwave, it will be one of the things that we are not too sure of whether it has.
There are bigger problems that we have to focus on, and it's the things we are actually consuming rather than anything else.
Yes.
Right. Because I said this one will pass for both lunch and dinner. In terms of vegetable, I mean, on this table, I can see it looks very like red, pretty much. But I understand for a meal, we should be looking at like more green and
That's true. If you have more greens on your plate, then you are closer to eating more healthily. So that's why I mentioned that for this particular wache, you can put some green leafy vegetables on it. You can also slice your avocados and put it on it. That will give you some greens as well. Usually, my advice is that for every food, especially our main meals, for every food, you have to ask yourself, where am I getting my fruits or my vegetables from? One good thing that we do as a way of cooking is that most of our stews will have some vegetables in it. But most of the vegetables are also ground vegetables. So you want to find a way to have vegetables that are not ground, which is why I mentioned that. So things like your soup, you can add things like your garden eggs or even spinach to bulk it up. What that does is that it gives you opportunity to have vegetables, but it also gives you opportunity to eat less of other foods.
And does the duration of the cooking process have an impact? Because typically, making a bowl of jollof rice, for instance, takes ages. I mean, for most families, we cook in bulk, you know, to last a week and manage it for the whole week. But does the duration or the cooking process, does it diminish the nutrients that we get from it?
The answer is yes.
It does.
It takes away some of the minerals and vitamins that's available to you. And the way that you want to replenish that is to have your raw salad to go with it. That will be the way to mitigate that loss that you probably have by overcooking.
Yeah. A lot of us have the excuse that we can have a massive bowl of, say, fufu or whatever because I eat only once a day and that's it. Is that a good thing to do or not? Because omitting meals.
So I would say it's not a good pattern to have. Mainly, and I will say for 3 reasons. One of which is that we have something called body clock. The body has been designed to have a rush of glucose in the morning and a rush and an upsurge of insulin to match that glucose in the morning. And then it comes down again, maybe 3-4 hours later in the afternoon, it goes up again because you're eating, and it comes down again, and then it goes up. It peaks around 3 times a day, and that is how the body has been studied to work properly. If you do not eat at all and you have only one massive meal during the day, you lose that opportunity for your body to have upsurge of glucose, upsurge of insulin to match it, and so on and so forth. And there's been some evidence that people who do not eat regularly are more likely to be insulin resistant. And I think that's the reason, because they are not used to the body producing insulin at the right time, going down in the afternoon, coming up again. That rhythm is altered. The other reason why I would say it's not a good idea to have one meal a day is that you want to have a variety of foods through the day, because you want to have your vitamins and your minerals from different foods, and different foods give you different minerals and different vitamins. So even fruits, I'll use fruits as an example. The color of the fruit will tell you what minerals and vitamins are dominant.
Okay.
So by eating the rainbow colors, you get all the minerals and vitamins you need. And that can be translated to foods as well. So the different variety of foods combined together will give you the balance you need. But if you eat once a day, you are unlikely to get that. The last reason why I will suggest that people do not eat once a day is that even though you say that you are eating once a day, it is likely that you might pick on something through the day because you're hungry. It's natural. You might pick on biscuit, you might pick on crisp without accounting for it as food. Yeah. And that will not be helpful for your weight.
Okay, let's take another question.
Thank you. I can see before you is a bottle of alcohol. Some people do take some alcohol before eating. I mean, in Ghana we call it ibudidi. Is it a good thing? And I also want to know whether a little intake of alcohol is good for the body. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll come back to my response, which is that is a great question actually. So, two things. There is evidence that, so first of all, there are reasons why people might not want to drink alcohol. Health reasons, religious reasons. So this is not to say that people should start drinking alcohol if they don't drink alcohol. But there's good evidence that small amount of alcohol is better than not drinking alcohol at all for many health related reasons. One of which is your heart, one of which is your risk of type 2 diabetes. So if you compare somebody who does not drink at all to somebody who drinks moderately, the person who drinks moderately are less likely to have type 2 diabetes, less likely to have heart disease. But if you compare that to the person who drinks excessively, then their risk of all these conditions, including cancer, is very, very high. So the advice is to limit the amount of alcohol you drink to 14 units. So to put that into
14 units per
week.
Per week.
14 units per week. To put that in perspective, a shot of this white drink, or it looks like a gin or vodka. A shot of it will be one unit, which means that if that's all that you drink, then the limit you should go for is 14 shots in a day. In a week. Never in a day, in a week. If you are the one who goes for beer, then a pint of beer will be about 2 units. If you are the type who goes for wine, then a small glass of wine will be 1 unit. A big glass will be about 2 units. And what you want to do is, if you decide that for you want to have 14 units in a week, it's better to spread it. So you don't say, okay, I'm allowed 14 units, I'm going to wait. At the weekend, I'm going to have all 14 units. You don't do well for your health. It's better to spread it and maybe have 2 days out of the week where you will not drink anything. Then your question about whether it's better to have it before you eat or after. There's some good evidence from the Mediterranean countries that drinking with your food confers more benefits. So for example, when they are eating, they usually have a glass of wine with the food. There's evidence that that practice confers more benefits to the heart.
I mean, it depends on what they are drinking, isn't it? Because for most people, we're talking about hard stuff.
So that has been a good question that has been asked in research. And the evidence is that apart from wine, which probably because of the polyphenols that come from the grapes, all other alcohols, there's not much difference in terms of how it affects the health, so long as you are limiting it to a maximum of 14 units per week.
Right, so we've done a lot for what you can have in the day. There are a lot of us who work, especially in developed countries, night shifts. And balancing what to eat during the day at night is sometimes very, very tricky. What advice do you have for eating overnight as well? So
again, it goes back to my earlier submission about the body clock. There's evidence that eating at night, especially after watershed, is not good for your health. And there's been a lot of evidence that show that people who work night shifts, who eat late in the night, or stand a higher chance of developing heart diseases and type 2 diabetes. And it's mainly because of their eating pattern. So my advice will usually be that you eat your main meal during the day. And then in the night, when you're in your shift, you can have snacks or something light. So you don't eat the heavy meal in the night. And this is probably because, again, there's been evidence that if you eat closer to your sleep, even people when they are in shift, they do have a nap every now and then. If you eat 3 hours closer to your sleep or sleep time, it doesn't benefit your health that good. I will also say that when you have had your main meal during the day, have some snack that has more protein in it, because protein can keep you fuller for longer. And a good example is maybe a pot of yogurt or a handful of nuts.
We will be getting ready to round off, but before we do, another important aspect of our health generally is water. Flavored water, fizzy water, and even how much water is recommended that we take. And whilst you get ready to answer that, I just want to sound a note of caution as well, that all this is tailored towards the healthy individual, trying to prevent disease from occurring. So for people who are already diagnosed with different conditions, diabetics, kidney failure, and all other conditions, they will be under different food regimes.
Yes.
So this is not like generic, it's not for everyone. And I suggest that if you are suffering with any health condition, you see a specialist, so they guide you as to what diet is suitable for your condition. And I'm saying this because I've had a kidney failure patient here, and you know how we encourage eating a lot of greens. And they said, no, we can't have greens. You have to even eat avocados sparingly because they have high potassium and all that. So when you have an underlying condition, we will probably be looking at your electrolytes, everything, not just the vitamins, minerals, and everything. So this is just by the way. So let's look at water now. Water, what do we do with that?
So let me just go back to the disclaimer that you mentioned, and just to add something to it. So it is clear that the advice we're giving here is not to treat any condition. It's not to cure any condition. It's mainly for people who are generally healthy, who are trying to benefit more from the food they eat. So for example, if as I mentioned, that an example of a good snack is a handful of nuts. Somebody who is not allergic, that will not apply to them. So specific advice that we give might not apply to many people. So to go back to the question about water. So the body is roughly about 70-75% fluid. So our body weight is a lot of fluid. So we need to replenish our fluid intake through the day. Unfortunately, most of the options for fluids are also calorie laden. So I mentioned energy drinks, I mentioned things like malt, things like your fizzy drinks. They are all very laden with sugar and calories. So you don't want that. What you want is drinks that will replenish the body, but will not add calories to you. And the reason is that our body does not process or respond to calories in drinks as it does with food. So normally when we eat food, it goes into our tummy, a message is sent to our brain to say that some food has come in, and then that starts the process of you becoming satisfied. When you drink calories, that process is shortchanged. So you don't have that process of triggering satiety in the brain. So, which is why drinking your fizzy drinks is not a good idea. Drinking your energy drink is not a good idea. What is the best drink to have? I'm going to be very boring and say your plain water. Plain water, you can never go wrong with it. If you are the type who doesn't like plain water, you can spice it with a few, some drops of lime or lemon. Sometimes you can
Fresh lime.
Yeah, fresh lime. Sometimes there are some new water bottles where you can actually put fruits in there to infuse it and give it some flavor. So that would be my first option. Teas and coffees without added sugar would be another option because it gives you the opportunity to also add some calcium from your milk. Flavored water. Flavored water has been marketed as the more or less solution to everything. But many flavored water has sugar added to it. So if you're going to buy flavored water, check the label, check the ingredient list to see if it is sugar free or it has sugar added to it. Okay. Another fluid that I will recommend to people is the squash. So no added sugar squash. The one that you pour just a little bit and then you add water to it. That is also okay to drink.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you are the type who still likes your fizziness or things like that, then the diet fizzy drinks are also okay to drink. Of course, compared to water, water is better. But compared to the ordinary fizzy drinks, the diet fizzy drinks are better because they do not bring you the sugar. They have artificial sweetness in them.
But artificial sweetness, are they even good?
So artificial sweetness has also attracted a lot of backlash because in the past there have been some studies that have pointed to it increasing risk of things like cancers. But in those studies, what they did was, these studies were not done on human, they were done on rats, and what they did was to feed the rats with artificial sweetness. And nobody feeds on artificial sweetness. You only drink something that has artificial sweetness. So my advice is that artificial sweetness are safe, definitely safer than sugar. If you are the type who is drinking sugary drinks, then moving to artificial sweetness or artificially sweetened beverages will be better. If you are the type who is drinking water anyway, then you don't have any benefit in moving from that to artificial sweetness. So if I'm to categorize them, I'll say the best will be your water, the worst will be your sugary drinks, in between is the artificial sweetness.
Are there any other questions? And then we will round off this very, very fulfilling session. I've thoroughly enjoyed this one. So let me see if there are any more questions to come from the floor. And then if not, let's acknowledge a few people. So I can see a lot of you watch this one. Adrina Sari, she's saying unsweetened and calcium fortified. I think it was with the milk, isn't it, for breakfast? And she says, is it advisable to practice intermittent fasting? Let me acknowledge a few more people. Nana Abaka Ade says, this is very interesting. It has been, Ikuya Danswa is watching, many of you watching. I can't see all of you, but I really appreciate the support you give to this program, and I hope you are learning a lot as well. So anything you want to say?
Intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting has been, which is that you choose maybe 5 days, or you choose a few days of the week where you fast, which means you eat very little. Most often than not, you eat less than 500 calories a day, which is about just one meal a day. And on the other days you eat normally. It's been shown, it was first started with people who had cancer, and it's shown that when they did that, their cancer shrunk. But now people are using it to lose weight, and there are reports of people benefiting, because weight loss primarily has to do with eating less calories. So if you are able to fast without compensating on the days that you are not fasting, then you will lose weight. It just has to, there's a caveat that it will not be something for everybody, especially if you're on certain types of medications. You want to check with your doctor first.
Wow, okay, that's interesting. Any more questions from the floor, and then we will be rounding off this session. I hope you've learned a lot. Yes.
My question is on oils.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of oil do we say is a good type of oil? We have the palm oil, vegetable oil, salad oil. Which one?
Okay. So in terms of oil, and I'll go back home and recount a few that I know. So palm oil is straight out there, and then there's palm kernel oil. In terms of the profile, and by profile what I mean is the amount of saturated fat in them and the type of saturated fat in them. So whether it has palmitic acid, it has stearic acid, and the rest, or myristic acid. It seems purely on profile, palm kernel oil is the worst type of oil that you can have because it has a lot of palmitic acid. Palm oil also has a lot of palmitic acid, but it's better than palm kernel oil. And then you have coconut oil. That's the one they call Advisable. Yeah, the one that uses the actual kernel of the palm. That's the worst. And then you come to coconut oil. Coconut oil's profile, it has what we call lauric acid, which is a medium chain acid. And that seems to be less harmful than palmitic acid, which is in the palm oil. So coconut oil is actually better than palm oil. But if you go then to the right, which will be your vegetable oil, the vegetable oil would trump all the oils that I've mentioned. So the vegetable oil is better than palm oil, is better than palm nut oil, is better than palm kernel oil, and is better than coconut oil. And of the vegetable oil, the one that has been researched and is proving better and better again is your olive oil because of the profile it has. But you get the benefit if you don't heat it.
Right, but when you heat it, and
when you heat it, depending on the heat that you apply to it, it turns more towards the saturated fat. It behaves like saturated fat. If you realize, if you heat it, it burns.
it burns
Yes.
quicker.
Yeah, it burns
I
quicker.
noticed.
So it's usually, especially the virgin ones, you usually want to have it at room temperature or apply minimal heat to it.
Right. So I'll take one more question from.
So do you mean that if you use virgin, that's the olive oil, to cook, it's rather on the bad side?
Yes. You want to use it for things like salads. It's better that way. If you're going to cook it, you have to slow cook it. So not
For
as
a
high.
heavy duty
high-
type of cooking.
So we believing that we are using olive oil to cook because we want to live healthily. We're doing it wrong.
You don't get the benefits when you heat it at high temperature.
Okay.
Wow. Such an eye opener. Any more questions from the panel? And I'll take the last question, and then we would round off. We would have done an hour and a half.
Salad with a large amount of cream, is it healthy?
Okay. So here I become a bit conflicted. Conflicted in the sense that salad is good for us. And if the only way that somebody will eat salad is to put cream on it, then I'm all for it. Because the salad itself is so good for you and the cream will do very little. So, but if you compare that to somebody who is trying to lose weight and has just the salad without the cream, then the salad without the cream will be better. You probably ask, that will not taste well. So what you do is you can have some ground pepper, black pepper on it. You can put some, what do we call it? You can squeeze some lime on it. You can also perhaps put, for some people, put a few nuts in it. It gives you some chewy opportunity, but also it gives you some flavor. But if the only way that you're going to eat your salad is to put cream on it, then I'll recommend that you eat your salad with the cream.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Mr. Twenefour, I'll take this opportunity as always to say a very, very big thank you to you. This is the third time here, and I've totally enjoyed all the sessions. And if our viewers have any questions, I'm sure they can direct it to me or find you on Facebook, and they will get their questions answered. But I'm sure we can think of other health topics.
Yes.
And I know you are always very happy to come in to help us. The next time do you want to just give a little,
Yeah, so
and then I'll round off.
If I'm allowed, I was going to say that I do see people. So for people who are perhaps watching and who want more of an individualized advice, they can reach me on my Facebook, but also they can search 24 Health on Facebook, and they can book an appointment to see me.
Yeah.
The appointment doesn't have to be face-to-face. We do appointments across the different platforms, including Zoom.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter where you are,
Yes.
isn't it? You can still reach him. If not, like many of you do, you reach out to me, and I always try to get your questions answered by my guests. It's been another awesome session of Let's Talk About Health. This has come live from London, Omega Live Studios, proudly sponsored by World Remit. The next time we come here in 2 weeks' time, I have a group of people, obstetricians, gynecologists, they are here to tell us why women die. Why women die. It's a very full-on, catchy topic, and I can't really wait to go through the series that they've got to share. So I wouldn't want any of you to miss it. For today's show, share to your family and friends, and let's get all the knowledge out there, because it's just these little bits of information that go a long way to prolong our health. So 2 weeks from now, I have a gynecologist, a consultant coming here, and they want to focus on their activities in Ghana. It's easy for us to sit here abroad and criticize the systems back home, but there are people who have gone further, not just to look at what they are doing here, but taking it out there to the less privileged areas to save life. So please tune in 2 weeks' time. It's been awesome. And as usual, I'm grateful. So keep sharing. On that note, I'll say COVID is still around. So stay safe, safe, safe. Have a blessed week till we meet again. Thank you. Bye.
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about. How it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.